Hey guys, Comic Boom here to talk about the top 10 takeaways from the Justice League so far, from basically issue 1 all the way up to the Justice League Annual number 1. There's a lot to take in. It's kind of a convoluted story, but it's quite epic, and I think that it's worth trying to get at least the top 10 takeaways so far about what exactly is happening in the pages of the Justice League, and not just the Justice League, but also to a larger extent touching upon the pages of Justice League Odyssey as well, which is particularly relevant. The bottom line here is, and I'm just going to start off here, I'm going to try to basically state 10 things, top 10 takeaways in no particular order, but it's a lot easier just to focus on top 10 takeaways as it is to try to focus on, to try to tell in a linear fashion the entire story, because that would take a long time, so I'm just going to cut right to the chase. First thing to take away is that the main enemy, the main ultimate negative, powerful, evil force is this woman by the name of Perpetua. And Perpetua is basically the ultimate bad guy. Perpetua is the mother of the Monitor and the Anti-Monitor, and also the mother of the World Forger, who we last saw on the pages of Metal. And basically, Perpetua is trapped behind the Source Wall. We live in a universe which is part of a larger multiverse. Now, the multiverse in the DC universe has gone through a lot of crises over the last how many generations, right? And we had the original Crisis on Infinite Earths, we had the Infinite Crisis, Final Crisis, we had Flashpoint, we had Convergence, we had all kinds of things, 0 Hour Crisis in Time, etc., etc., etc. You don't really need to know any of that stuff, but if you do, everything's okay. Bottom line is this. All the chaos that the multiverse that the DC universe is part of, all the chaos that the multiverse has gone through has been with the absence of Perpetua, because Perpetua used to be the ruler of our multiverse. But at some point, Perpetua was trapped and hidden away and basically encaged behind the Source Wall. The Source Wall was created essentially to cage Perpetua, to keep her out of our multiverse. Now, Perpetua is a massive, powerful entity, which is basically in maternal form. She's basically described as a woman, so I guess she's a powerful maternal godlike figure, that she's got power over the seven energies of creation, as well as their opposites. So we have the Speed Force. Opposite of that, we've got the Still Force. We've got the emotional spectrum, of which Green Lantern is part of that, Sinestro Corps, etc., etc. And the opposite of that, we have the Ultraviolet Corps. We've got the power of divinity. Opposite of that, we've got whatever the opposite of divinity is. We have the power of life and the sea life. And Aquaman, opposite of that, I guess you can call it the tier of extinction. Now, so we know basically 4 of these powerful energies of creation, and we know their 4 positive and negative attributes, but we're unaware of the other 3. That's yet to be revealed in the pages of Justice League. Well, Perpetua embodies all of that. Now, Perpetua is part of a larger omniverse. So we've got a multiverse, of which the DC universe is part of a multiverse. So the 52 worlds of the multiversity, the 52 Earths that make up the multiverse of the DC universe, which was embodied in Grant Morrison's The Multiversity, those 52 Earths make up just our multiverse. But there are many multiverses within a larger omniverse. The omniverse consists of multiple multiverses. So the omniverse itself consists of many different powerful beings like Perpetua that each control and rule over their own multiverse. Perpetua is the most powerful out of all this family of beings that essentially rules and controls, or at least has a great deal of power over the larger multiverses that make up the Omniverse. Now, Perpetua was the most feared and the most reviled of all these powerful godlike beings that control individual multiverses. Now, we don't know who imprisoned Perpetua behind the Source Wall, but whoever did is probably upset now that Perpetua has been released in the latest issue of Justice League, being the Justice League Annual #1. Now, the other thing to bear in mind here is when the Source Wall was broken up, when there was a crack in the Source Wall, what that resulted in is that these 7 energies of creation that Perpetua controlled through her great army, these 7 energies of creation leaked into our universe, and they triggered the reaction of the Omega Titans that we saw in the pages of No Justice. Now, there were 4 Omega Titans. There was the Omega Titans of Wisdom, Mystery, Wonder, and Entropy. And these Omega Titans were created and existed in our universe to become activated the moment that there was a breakdown in the source wall, and they were essentially activated to upon there being a break in the source wall, they were the first safeguard against a crack in the source wall, to basically combat and prevent Perpetua being released. And so the Omega Titans were created to essentially, upon the source wall being breached, they would devour a number of planets in our multiverse, get energy from devouring and eating those planets, and then traveling to the source wall and fusing themselves with the source wall, thereby sealing it, healing the source wall, and effectively sort of solidifying the cage and the wall, so to speak, preventing Perpetua from entering our reality, entering our multiverse. Now, unfortunately, the Justice League, thinking that the Omega Titans were up to no good when they were devouring the planets, even though it was for a larger good, they stopped the Omega Titans, and one of the Omega Titans, Entropy, was actually killed. And the Justice League thought they had saved the universe, thought they were doing some good stopping these Omega Titans from devouring these planets. As it turns out, the Omega Titans were actually there to actually save the multiverse and prevent Perpetua from entering our reality. The Justice League never knew that. Meanwhile, Lex Luthor, with the Legion of Doom, has been slowly working to get control and discover all these 7 energies of creation. Luthor himself, through knowledge passed down to him through his father, long story. Bottom line is, Luthor was aware of the existence of these 7 initial powerful energies of creation, and he, through the Legion of Doom, wanted to acquire them. Legion, he traveled into the future, and Luthor saw a vision of himself in the future, or a reality of himself in the future, where he was very powerful, and basically he saw that the future was doom. He came to the conclusion that the true reality, the true nature of the universe, was basically evil and filled with doom, and therefore he felt that, well, the best way to embrace that is to work toward it, and he wants to get control of these 7 energies of creation and basically bring doom to the multiverse and to basically control it. Now, that's what Luthor and the Legion of Doom have been seeking to do. One of the ways that Luthor was seeking to do that was doing that through Starman. And basically Starman was, Luthor plucked Starman from the year 1988 because the Starman embodied in himself a number of some of the mysteries, the mysterious energies of creation. And so Luthor basically, he captured Starman and basically did studies on him and basically figured out and got some further information on these energies of creation. Now, over time, Starman's mind slowly began to heal, and the energies that were contained within Starman were sort of energies from the totality. And the totality, when the source wall was cracked, it was the energies from the source wall encompassed in a totality that made its way toward Earth, and part of those had fused into Starman. Now, what's rather curious is that Starman, unlike Lex Luthor, he was imbued with more of the positive energies, even though he's got aspects of all the 7 mysterious initial energies of creation. And Starman came to a different conclusion as his mind healed and he became more sane and not overpowered mentally by these powers of creation. He came to the conclusion that the true nature of the universe was light. It was filled with goodness, and unlike Lex, he thought that it was really the light, and he's more focused on the positive aspects of the energies of creation, whereas Luthor was about the negative. Now, as this is all playing out, there's some secrets that have been going on and have been kept by the Guardians of the Universe. And the Guardians of the Universe, of course, are the ones that created the Green Lantern Corps. Now, the biggest secrets that the Guardians of the Universe has to do with Perpetua. The Guardians used to be a race called the Maltusians. And over the millennia, over the eons, of their existence, the Guardians eventually evolved, the Maltusians eventually evolved into the race called the Guardians of the Universe. Now, initially, when they were Maltusians, one of the earliest scientist Maltusian was Krona, and Krona observed the beginning of time with the giant hand, the empty hand, and he also began to notice symbols of Perpetua crop up at random places all throughout the multiverse. And the symbol of Perpetua was quite terrifying, because the symbol of Perpetua basically embodied the 7 positive aspects of creation and the 7 negative energies and aspects of creation. And the symbol of Perpetua basically propped up everywhere. Well, that's one of the secrets that the Guardians wanted to protect. Over the eons, they want to keep Perpetua hidden behind the source wall, because they know that if Perpetua is released, Perpetua and her great army will essentially basically take over the universe and create chaos and ultimately destroy it or bring a great deal of darkness upon it. Now, the other aspect that the Guardians were aware of, and this was revealed by the Martian Keep, who was keeping a secret who was trapped on Thanagar Prime and was eventually released and rescued by Martian Manhunter and Hawkgirl and Green Lantern and the Flash in issues 15 and 16 of the Justice League. The Martian Keep was ultimately rescued, but she died, but not before revealing a secret to Martian Manhunter. And that secret essentially is that the great army, that Perpetua's great army that is also trapped behind the source wall, is actually a hybrid race. Initially, it was a race that was a combination of human and Martian DNA. And upon Perpetua being encased and caged behind the source wall, this great army of hers, this species, this powerful species, which had great passion and great power of mind and body and fiery passion, it was basically split into two. So the great army of Perpetua split into 2 species, human beings and Martians. And what's interesting about that is we're talking about the human beings being us and the Martians being Martian Manhunter. And what's particularly interesting about this is that a number of generations ago, some human scientists sort of discovered this, because they were sort of looking back through time, and they sort of discovered this, and they wanted to try to replicate Perpetua's great army. And they did that by looking back in time. They wanted to pluck Martian Manhunter. They plucked Martian Manhunter when he was a young boy, and they did experiments on a young John Jones to see if they could replicate the species of Perpetua's great army. Now, as it turned out, that was basically failed experiments, but it's interesting that throughout time, various attempts have been made to replicate Perpetua's great army, and the secrets of Perpetua, or bits and pieces of it, over the millennia have leaked out here and there, and the Guardians of the universe have always tried to contain it and to keep those secrets hidden, and they kept those secrets hidden on Thanagar Prime. Now, Thanagar Prime, interestingly enough, is sort of a planet that is basically, for the longest time, up until issue 16 of the Justice League, it was revealed, was basically a massive illusion. What happened is that Thanagar used to be just sort of an average planet, and the Thanagarian race had something called an Absorbascron, and the Absorbascron basically was a device that they kept all their history on. All the memories and the history of the Thanagarian race was kept within the Absorbascron. Now, when the source wall broke down at the end of the pages of Metal, all of the nth metal in the multiverse became much more powerful, because the nth metal is connected to Perpetua. And the moment that there was a crack in the source wall, all nth metal became far more powerful. And since the Absorbascron is made of nth metal, not only did Absorbascron maintain its ability to keep the memories and the history of the Thanagarian people intact, it also developed the ability to manifest all of those memories and that history into whatever reality the user of the Absorbascron used. Now, Shayera Hall, of the former Hawkgirl, or Hawkwoman, she basically was using the Absorbascron to create a false illusion of Thanagar, imagining it to be Thanagar Prime, a much more powerful planet where all the secrets of the universe and where all the various races of the universe would travel to hide their secrets within the planetary core of Thanagar Prime. Now, that illusion was shattered. In order to use the Absorbascron properly, they needed a powerful mind to withhold all those energies, and the only person that they could find with a mind powerful enough to do that was the Martian Keep, one of the sole surviving Martians of the Martian race, of the same race as Martian Manhunter. Now that makes a lot of sense, because remember, the original species that made up Perpetua's great army was Martian and human DNA, and so it made sense that a powerful Martian telepath would be the only one capable to be able to withstand and to process all those energies and to use the Absorbascron. In any event, when the illusion was revealed and essentially the Absorbascron was essentially destroyed and no longer used, it became clear then that the source wall was broken down and something had to be done. Somebody has to seal up the source wall. Now, at the end of Justice League 16, the Thanagar Prime has been revealed to be the illusion that it is. The Thanagarian people are actually much less in number than originally believed. They're not particularly powerful, but Shayera Hall, Hawkwoman on Thanagar Prime, and Kendra Saunders, Hawkgirl, they both were of basically the same reincarnated lives. Now, what's interesting is that the Guardians of the Universe happen to be aware, and the Martian Keep revealed to Martian Manhunter that essentially Perpetua is afraid of Hawkgirl. Perpetua basically split. When the source wall split open, basically that severed the reincarnation element of the Hawkwoman mythology. Because usually in Hawkman lore and Hawkwoman lore, they're destined to live and die and then be reborn again as Hawk people throughout time. Well, the breakdown of the source wall, the energies that were released, Perpetua basically wanted deliberately to split Hawkwoman Kendra from Shayera Hall. She doesn't want a whole Hawkwoman. There's something about Kendra and her wings that is particularly powerful. Perpetua did not want it to be discovered that Kendra has this certain power and Shayera Hall together have this certain power, because there's something that we still do not know yet, but there's something about Kendra as Hawkgirl that is a potential weapon capable of defeating Perpetua herself, which is quite extraordinary when you think about it, but it's very, very interesting. Very interesting indeed. Now, as we got to the source wall, Starman, along with the Trinity, along with many members of the Justice League, traveled to the Promethean Galaxy, which is a obscure part of the galaxy, which is has different elements and a different makeup than other aspects, than other areas of the multiverse. And the goal there was to try to seal the source wall. They brought the surviving Omega Titans with them of Wisdom, Wonder, and Mystery, and they wanted to fuse them to the source wall. So Starman's plan was really simple. He wanted to fuse the Omega Titans of Wonder, Wisdom, and Mystery to the source wall, sealing it. And because the Entropy Titan is no longer around and had died in the pages of No Justice, he nonetheless, Starman had the Entropy energy within him, so that he would shoot that energy through Kendra, Hawkgirl's wings, and seal up that portion of the source wall where normally the Entropy Titan would be. So that was the plan. And it was going fine until along comes the Legion of Doom with Brainiac and Luthor, and they put a wrench in that plans. They interrupt that process, and just as the Starman is channeling and shooting his Entropy energy through Kendra's wings, Brainiac rechannels it, and he's aware that, in fact, Starman has aspects of all of the 7 basic initial elemental energies of creation within him. And because the Legion of Doom only has 4 of those energies so far, and they're missing 3, they can get a hold of those other 3 aspects, which is exactly what they did. And they utilize that to basically reconstitute Perpetua herself in our multiverse, and that's what they were successful in doing. By doing that, it completely destroyed the source wall. So, despite the Justice League's best efforts, the source wall is now completely destroyed. Perpetua is now in our reality in a coma-like state in the spaceship of the Legion of Doom, and everyone is expecting chaos Lex Luthor himself expects that there's going to be an all-out war, because bear in mind, now that the source wall is broken, the source wall is the one thing that separated our multiverse from other multiverses as well. So it could be that Perpetua is not only going to wreak war on our multiverse now that she's back, but her brothers and sisters who of the larger Omniverse that control other multiverses might be angry that Perpetua has been released, and they might come into the fray as well. So this could be a huge epic war. We don't know exactly what's going on, but we know that this is far greater than anyone imagined. This is greater than a crisis. This is greater than an original crisis, an infinite crisis, or a final crisis. This is greater than a convergence. This is greater than any crisis that DC's ever had. And ironically enough, it actually makes a crazy kind of sense that all this is finally coming to some perverted, crazy, massive, epic, boom-like sense of proportion. Wow. Wow, wow, is all I gotta say. Scott Snyder and James Tynion IV have been thinking really big, guys. Very impressive. This is also linked to the multiversity, because recall in the pages of the multiversity, with Grant Morrison's multiversity, that the Justice Incarnate that is led by the Superman, the African-American Superman who is president of Earth 23, he leads the Justice Incarnate with the female Aquaman, the Captain Carrot, the Thunderer. That Justice Incarnate, it's their job to preserve the sanctity of our multiverse. Well, they defeated the Gentry and the powerful force of the Empty Hand in the pages of the multiversity, preventing the Empty Hand and the Gentry from coming into our multiverse and destroying our multiverse. But now that Perpetua is here, they think that the multiverse is doomed because they failed to protect it. So this has far and wider implications than we can heretofore appreciate. It's also worth noting that when the source wall was destroyed, Darkseid's Apocolips went missing, along with New Genesis. New Genesis is where Mr. Miracle is and the New Gods. Apocolips and New Genesis disappeared. Where are they? What's even more interesting than that is in the pages of Justice League Odyssey, in the pages of No Justice, it was revealed that there's a ghost sector of the galaxy where the Coluans shrunk a bunch of their planets. They shrunk their planets, and when those planets were enlarged at the end of No Justice, there was like a whole slew of new planets that suddenly appeared in a new sector of space called the Ghost Sector. Darkseid is in that Ghost Sector, and it has been recently revealed that apparently the master plan here is that Darkseid wants to essentially eat a number of those planets, and not eat them, but merge them in some way. Not eat them, but somehow just merge them, and in the chaos that ensues, he's going to be forming a new apocalypse. And it should be noted as well that Darkseid was able to protect the Ghost Sector from being destroyed once the source wall broke down in a massive explosion. He managed to protect the sanctity of the Ghost Sector, so he's protected his ability, presumably, to create a brand new apocalypse. And you can just bet that Darkseid is not going to take too kindly to Perpetua or any other force wanting to rule the multiverse when he's around, because that's something that Darkseid wants to do. And you just know that Darkseid himself is aware of the story of Perpetua. He's aware of the symbols. He's heard the stories from his father before him. So things are really heating up here. Things are really going in an epic fashion toward a massive war that is developing here. We still don't know what all the 7 forces are, the 7 opposing forces. We know the symbol of Perpetua. We know that their symbols we know that the lines below the Perpetua symbol represent the negative forces of energy. We know that the ones above represent the positive ones. We know that we got the speed force. We got the opposite of the speed force is the still force. We got the emotional spectrum, and below that we have the invisible spectrum. We know that we have the powerful force of divinity, and we have the opposite of that. We've got the power of life and sea of Aquaman lore, and below that, opposite of that, we've got the tier of extinction, I believe. So those are the 4. What the other 3 are, I'm not sure. If you guys think, let me know. Scott Snyder and James Tynion IV have speculated about it, but guys, this is all epic. This is leading to a massive showdown, a massive war. I'm really excited about this. It's a little convoluted. It took a while for me to get my head wrapped around everything. I know that there's stuff that I've missed. I'm trying to give the Coles Notes version here. I'm already at the 25-minute mark, and I've kind of just touched the tip of the iceberg here. So this is a mini splendored thing. Whether or not you think it's that particular splendorous is up to you. New word. Let me know what you guys think, guys. Wow. I talked a lot there, didn't I? In any event, guys, let me know what you think of Justice League so far. Justice League issues, particularly issues 15, 16, and Justice League Annual #1. This is building to be quite the story. Guys, follow me on Twitter at Metropolis40. Hit the subscribe button. And until next time, Comic Boom, out.